What's going on, guys? This is MrTeej66 Movie Reviews. I am Mr. Teej. Today I'll be taking a look at the 1974 classic vigilante action thriller Death Wish, starring Charles Bronson. With the remake starring Bruce Willis coming out this week, I figured it'd be a great time to take a look at the original classic. Now, the movie stars Charles Bronson as Paul Kersey, a New York architect whose wife and daughter are brutally attacked by a group of street thugs. One of them played by Jeff Goldblum in his feature film debut. His wife is killed, and his daughter is traumatized beyond belief. So he's kind of, upset about that. And he's a bleeding heart liberal who, really his views start to change over the course of this movie. And at first he goes to Tucson, Arizona to do a land developing deal, and he meets a gun-toting redneck who shows him the power of guns, and the guy gives him a gun as a present when he comes back, and he decides to go out and ruthlessly hunt down, muggers and kill them. Now, this movie is definitely a product of its time, and maybe hasn't aged very well in the current era we're in with the Parkland shooting and, various other school shootings and, just shootings in general. So, but it's a very right-wing movie, absolutely no question about it. It comes down pretty hard on muggers and, the police corruption, or not police corruption, like, the inability of police to do anything about it, people who care more about the rights of the criminals and things like that. And I do have to say, right off the bat, my biggest problem with this movie are the portrayal of the muggers. They're cartoons. I mean, they're very typical for the 70s. They're soulless, psychopaths whose only motive is to spread, anarchy and fear and money, and they're just not given any depth whatsoever. I mean, it kind of works, but sometimes the acting is just god-awful. I mean, as I said, Jeff Goldblum is one of the muggers in his film debut, and he is it's just mugging. They're cartoons. They really are cartoon characters, and it's really difficult to see them as any kind of threat, although I do have to say that the scene where his wife and daughter are actually mugged is very effective, very brutal, and, it's very hard to watch. I mean, although in a sense that seems kind of dated too, because, with women's rights and everything, they would probably, nowadays, they would fight back, and I wanted them to, like, kick the shit out of those guys. Boom! The acting is okay. Charles Bronson is obviously the main lead, and he's, the main focus, and I must say that man's face never changes expression. He always has the same expression on his face. Badass! Even when he's a normal, architect, he has this aura of being larger than life. I love the way the movie shoots him as, like, kind of a gun-toting, gunslinger in modern-day New York. But there's something about he does a good job. It's a fairly one-note performance, but it's very effective for what it is. Everyone else is just okay. The wife and daughter are basically just plot devices. They're not really developed at all. I mean, it's less than 5 minutes before she's actually murdered, so we don't really get to know her very well. As the movie's very right-wing in its portrayal, Charles Bronson's character says at some point, what happens when the police can't help us? Maybe we should defend ourselves, and there's constant, billboards with magazines, saying, because when he starts doing this, it becomes a new sensation, he's dubbed the vigilante, and, it's... even if you don't agree with what this movie says, it is very well shot. It's well directed. The action is brutally violent, but, sort of gratuitous, but that's kind of the point. I do have to give another complaint, and this is not just this movie, a lot of movies of this period. Why is the blood so brightly colored? I mean, it looks like paint. It really does. It looks like someone slapped a coat of paint on the actors. It takes me out of the movie a little bit, but overall, this movie is a product of its time. If you don't like guns, you're probably not going to like this movie. I may as well say my stance on guns. I'm not against guns, but I do think they should be, policed and, or not policed, but stricter laws should be enforced to, give people the right to have guns, but they should have background checks and, much more thorough. I'm all for people having guns. Do not let me think I'm like one of those liberals or gun-hating liberals who thinks they should be taken off the streets. That's not the answer, 100%. But, I do think they should be, policed a little bit more. But overall, I would give this movie probably a 7.3. It's nothing brilliant. If you like this kind of thing, you'll like it. If you don't, there's probably nothing here that's going to change your mind. But, Yeah, 7.3, a very fun movie. They made like 4 sequels, which I have not watched. I've heard they're quite hilarious, but this movie, for the most part, is pretty serious. There's not a lot of campy elements to it, except maybe the muggers are kind of ridiculous, as I said. But yeah, overall 7.3. This movie is a fun vigilante movie. But anyway, that's my review. This is MrTeej66, and I will see you next time.